I'm so excited to be here with you guys today. I've been, in my job, I get to go to a lot of conferences. And so I felt, as I go into these other conferences, a lot of pressure, especially the keynotes. A lot of the keynotes tend to be very, in the clouds kind of stuff. And so today we're going to get a little bit of both, because I like applied, like what can I take home and use, and then a little bit in the clouds too. So me, I didn't grow up as a wellness guy. I grew up as a computer science guy. My first job was with IBM, and most of my career I've been developing software. And about 4 years ago, the opportunity came to work with some of the former investors that I worked with before and do this wellness company. And so, just like with the other applications I built, I dove in head first to learn about wellness. And I don't know, think about it if you did that, right? Like, I was a little bit shocked, when I learned what the typical wellness program included, right? Because your typical basic wellness, again, 4 years ago too, is basically biometric screening and a health risk assessment. A lot of companies were giving out a lot of money just to do those two things. Maybe there'd be a walking challenge. And I'm just like, it doesn't change anything. This is wellness. So I've since found out how important biometric testing is, and health risk assessments, and how it can save lives and everything. But that didn't stop the fact that me and the company, we got on board with habits. It was habit time. The Power of Habit came out with Charles Duhigg. In fact, that was one of the first things I did, is I wrote the book, the 21 Habits, with our health coach. And my original intent with this was to kind of debunk all the myths. I had lived with crazy health fanatics, right? And they had all these things, drink this and that's going to cure you. And the idea was, well, let's just get back to basics. What are the things you need to do to be healthy? And so we wrote down those 21 things, but then once we had those 21 things, it was like, boy, this is no revelation. The real trick here is not what we need to do, but baking it into our lives, making it a habit. And so we added a section at the beginning of the book that lays out a 6-step process for building habits. So let's go through this a little bit. So let me just tell you at a high level what I'm going to talk to you about first. First, we're going to talk about 21 habits, the 6-step process. Then we're going to get into challenges and how to design a really good challenge, and then some tips on the wellness program. And then I'm going to add a little piece on myself and my personal journey, and I think where the industry is going with wellness also at the end. So first of all, with the habits and what you read in Charles Duhigg and all that, a habit is like so cool. I mean, really, when we have a habit, we're on autopilot. So like when we drive a car, remember, I have a son now, he's 15, he's learning how to drive a car. It's complicated, right? Like even if he wants to make a left-hand turn, he's got turn signal, look in the mirror, look in the other mirror, look over my shoulder, all this stuff, right? It's complicated. But you and me, who've been driving cars for years, we don't even think about it. We leave the office and we arrive at home and we didn't think about driving at all. So that's the power of habits. Imagine if your wellness life was like that. Imagine if you just automatically did all the things to be well and you didn't even have to think about it. And that's great. That's what we're shooting for, okay? And so that's the power of habits. And in fact, if you look at another way of looking at habits, is that's what makes up who you are. So, if somebody cuts you off in traffic and you're the kind of person that honks your horn and gets all mad, that's a habit. It's an automatic response to something in our lives. And so we can change those habits. You can't change them all at once. We need one at a time, and become a different person. And essentially, really what we're doing is we're reprogramming ourselves, just like Ted, the computer scientist. We can reprogram ourselves through learning new habits. So it's super cool. So now we're going to go through the 6-step process in the book. The first one is kind of a new step. About 3 of these steps are Charles Duhigg steps and BJ Fogg steps, the other habits people have out there. But this one's a new step that we added. It's believe it. So before you even start, you need to believe that you can build that habit into your life. And this kind of plays into a little bit recently in conferences that I've been to this year. Purpose seems to be the theme. Like every conference has a speaker on purpose. It seems almost like every year has a different thing. You know, it was mindfulness, resiliency. Before that, it was habits. But this year is the year of purpose. And so if you think about it, believing that you can do something, that really does go back to purpose. I want to give you maybe a little story to help show you how important purpose is. I've got a friend who is wanted to break the habit of smoking, right? One of the hardest habits to break ever. And so we're sitting around, we're talking to her, okay, you know, so how many cigarettes did you used to smoke? How many are you smoking now? And then her in particular, this friend, she lives in Chicago, and when she was young, she actually went on a party trip with her friends down to Chicago, and they didn't have enough safety belts. She sat in the back of a hatchback, and in the process, they got in a car wreck, and so she's partially paralyzed. And so she's about my age, and you know, we're going through this conversation again. You know, so okay, and where do you? Because she can't even get around. She needs somebody to bring her to the store. So where do you get your cigarettes, right? And she gets them from friends and stuff. And then, you know, I thought, because I had gone to these conferences, I thought, you know, I'm just going to ask her, like, why do you even want to quit smoking? Thinking back to purpose. And so I asked her, why do you even want to quit smoking? And you know what she tells me? She says, my son, my 15-year-old son, I need to be there for him to get him launched into life. Now, think about that. There's a whole different feeling. Like, all of a sudden, can she quit smoking? Yes. It's not about quitting smoking. It's about being there for her 15-year-old son. She can do that. But when you're talking about how many cigarettes per day, it's like, what? Just stop. You're annoying me. Anyway, so that's the power of purpose. If we have a really strong purpose behind forming a habit, it makes it so much easier. Okay, next one is shrink it. As part of our habit journey, we went up to the BJ Fogg boot camp in California, north of San Francisco, at his house, and I'm just going to use his examples for a couple of these. The shrink it one, one that he really likes to use is, okay, I'm going to pick up the habit of flossing. Just make it so easy that you can't not do it. So his example was, I'm going to try to floss, and so when you start out, the goal should be to floss one tooth. Like, who can't floss one tooth? So that's the idea. When you're trying to make a habit, dumb it down to something that's so easy you can't not do. And then the next step, which is a step a lot of people have, is the trigger it. I'm going to use another BJ Fogg example. He used the example of doing push-ups. So his trigger was every time he needed to go to the bathroom, he would do 2 push-ups or 5 push-ups, something like that. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And so I tried it in our office, and what I found out is his technique was you'd go to the bathroom and then come back and then do the push-ups. I would get distracted by the time I got back. So I modified it, and I did push-ups first, and then I went to pull-ups. I was doing pull-ups and then go to the bathroom. So the strongest kind of triggers, when you first think of triggers, you think, well, I'll just set an alarm. But that, you know, you don't always have the alarm around. So it's best to model your trigger after something that's already naturally occurring in your life. So I'm going to floss after I brush my teeth. I'm going to do push-ups before I go to the bathroom. And so anyway. This is another step. I remember BJ Fogg again. We were up at his place, and he showed us this picture. So preparing to do a habit, he had his refrigerator. He's like one of these anal, super neat people. And his fridge had all these plastic containers in it with all these different types of healthy vegetables as he was going to embark on this healthy diet. So that's an example of preparing for it, is go out, maybe go through your house, get rid of all the bad stuff, and then go out and get shopping and get a plan in place how it's going to be easy. If you need some quick to grab food, it's just right there in the fridge already caught up or cut up and ready to go. And then tracking it, that's another thing you see in a lot of the literature. And for me, I thought, well, I don't need to track it. I mean, I had been through a lot of habits and built a lot of habits, and so I was working on one habit in particular and I'll get back to it later, but actually at one point I realized sarcasm really wasn't the greatest thing. There's always some bite to it. It's not really the nicest thing, so I started to get rid of that, but it was like a long process, probably like 18 months that I was working on it. I asked some friends to help and all this stuff, but I felt like a year into it, I'm like, I'm never going to build this habit. But at that point, I just said, you know what, I'm going to start to track it. And so I created this custom tracker in our wellness system, and I started tracking it every day. And you know, it made a world of difference, because I would actually go through a day and I could hit a day where I was clean, or maybe the next day I only did it one time, and I could see, wow, you know, I really have made some great progress. So tracking it's a huge thing to help you be effective. And then this last one is also be it. That's something that we added above and beyond the standard literature. You need to be, whatever you decide you want to be, you need to be that type of person. So over the years at our company, at this point, I'm the kind of person that doesn't eat donuts anymore. That didn't used to be me. When I lived down in Maryland as a kid, I remember the sugary donuts, you know, that they dip and then they frost them again, kind of that kind. I remember, I used to like to eat 4 and 6 on a good day when I was younger. But anyway, I've become the type of person, and people know that I'm around. And so if it was my birthday, nobody at work is going to bring in donuts for me, because they know I'm the type of person that doesn't eat donuts. And so by being that person, it makes it so much easier, and that's the only way you're going to have the habit stick. So anyway, theory behind habit. But the thing is, with habits, and this whole 6-step process, who wakes up in the morning and says, hey, you know, I think I'm going to follow a 6-step process to build a habit today? Nobody does that, right? Or who would? If you are, you're the weird one out there. And so that's where challenges come in, and that's where they're so neat. Because with the challenge, you take all those 6 steps, we compress it down into something that has all the things embedded. Basically, it's a game. I get to play this game, and all those steps naturally occur within the challenge. And so that's where we got into this. Well, the second book, we started building challenges. The idea was to have a different challenge every month in our product that our customers could use. And then I woke up and I'm like, you know what? We might as well just publish the Bible for challenges. And so I said, let's figure out 101 different challenges. And it was the greatest experience ever, because it got us out of our box, and we started coming up with challenges that were out of the box and interesting. And right now, I'm 80 challenges into the next version of this, which is 102 challenges. So then there'll be like 203. And it's so cool to anyway, I'll talk about some of the examples. So another sidebar for you guys, these 21 habit ones, I brought one for all you guys if you want it. You just stop by the WellRight booth. This 101 challenges, we ran out. It's so popular. So make sure at the booth, if you leave your address with Amy, then we'll send one to you in the mail. I'm so sorry we didn't have them for you today. And this one, it's so cool. It doesn't matter what system you're using. It's just 101 cool ideas that you can use in your wellness program, okay? And, okay. So to kind of get us in the mood, I'm going to play a couple videos of challenges that we've run at our company. What we do is even though it's only been 4 years, it's been virtually probably more like 20 years or 30 years, because every month we pilot 4 new challenges, and everybody doesn't have to do all 4, but they pick, they pick at least one, and then we talk about them during the month to see what's working and what's not working, and then we do it again. And so when we do, after we pilot it, Alex, he's running around here somewhere taking pictures, he turns it into a video. So we're going to watch videos of a couple challenges just to help get in your mind, well, what's Tad mean when he says a challenge? So here we go.
Over 30 days, you have to get
60 different people smile. So you could get a point if you smiled and you got a stranger, for example, to smile.
I don't think there's really a lot of ways to cheat besides being just generally creepy and counting that.
I kind of thought it was going to be difficult because you don't realize how many people you make smile or if you make anybody smile.
I thought it was going to be easy,
I always was with my dogs on walks, so it wasn't very hard to get people to smile.
It was actually a lot more difficult than I imagined. I guess in my mind, every time I told a joke when I was in line at the register, people just smiled and laughed. But then when I actually had to write it down, that wasn't always the case.
I think 60 people is just right.
It's only 2 a day. That's not too bad.
I mean, I live in Chicago. I live in the city. I run into 1,000 people every day, so.
1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, kind of like commute into work, commute home from work. You can always get somebody to smile.
I smile at people in the elevator and I hold doors for them. They smile back.
I think I went more of the thanking them, polite, look them in the eyes route.
But I did tuck someone's tag in. Their sweater tag was out. And I tucked it in and she turned around and smiled.
Oh, you actually?
Yeah.
Was she freaked out at first, or what did she do?
Maybe, yeah, because my hands might have been a little cold, coming down her neck. But yeah.
I think the most difficult part of this challenge is remembering to do it.
I kind of forgot about it throughout the course of the day.
So if you're conscious of it and remember every day, I think it's not too difficult. It's just remembering and making it a habit, I guess.
No, I did not know that. Okay, there's one. When I'm amused by something, I have a smirk, an evil smile, but a mischievous smile, this mischievous smile.
The no teeth, the half. I want to smile, but I don't want to smile.
I don't know, you tell me. Do you notice any that I have? I'm nervous right now, can you tell?
It felt really good to get someone to smile.
Oh, it felt good.
Yeah, it felt really good at the end of the day to realize how many people you made smile.
Okay, one more. The challenge is pretty simple. All you need to do is write down 3 things a day that you're grateful for.
Over 30 days, so that at the end of the challenge, you'll have a list of 90 wonderful things to be grateful for.
I just had a note. I use something on my phone and my laptop that syncs notes, and every day I just go write something down.
And either the system will alert you for tracking to put a yes or a no, or you can go in and just log that you've completed that challenge.
I thought it was a cool idea. Something I don't really pay attention to. Puts a positive spin on things. It forces you, just to appreciate the things you have every day.
One of the things I noticed as I went through the list is a lot of the entries deal with people and how grateful I am to have these people in my life.
I did start with bigger things right at the beginning. And then, I'm not gonna lie, I did get, there's a pizza on there, I'm grateful for pizza.
Obviously my daughter, always thankful for good food. Football season started, so I was pretty thankful about that, except the Bears are pretty awful.
Of course, my husband, my son, my home, my cats, even though they drive me crazy.
The deeper I got into the month, it got a little harder. I mean, I already had a list of 70 or 80 things that I was grateful for.
I noticed that I had gratitude for some similar things, and I was looking for new things.
Because, you can only say, lunch or food or whatever so many times, so you had to find different things.
But those were probably the most valuable times because it took longer. It made me think maybe outside the box of what I'm normally grateful for.
It absolutely made me feel better, made me appreciate things that I have, the things I didn't realize I had.
I just felt I was more happier, more at peace, and just overall a lot more grateful for what I have in my life right now.
Okay, so I'm going to go through 6 principles when designing challenges to make them effective. We've been through so many mistakes, and I don't know, you probably all think you're experts out there, but I can't tell you how many times I go to little breakout sessions and cringe when people talk about, we did Biggest Loser again, or some walking challenge where only the winner wins kind of thing. There's so many things you can do to make the challenges so much more effective. Like, I've been there. We've done those, and they didn't work. We did the Biggest Loser thing. This one guy in our office, he's a former wrestler, so he knew how to lose weight. For a challenge, so he won, and then as soon as he weighed in, he went down and he got this horrible breakfast and just stuffed himself. and gain the weight right back. It's just so sad. But anyway, so the first principle is this: make everybody a winner. And actually, I'm going to use the Biggest Loser thing as an example. Instead of structuring it as one or three people win, we have the Speech Ready one challenge that we ran this year, and it ran kind of during the beginning of the year, like March through May or June kind of thing, to get ready for the summer. And the way it worked was, for every pound you lost, you got some points, that you could cash in for gift cards and stuff. So basically everybody could win, and it was more of a long-term thing. You're losing this weight so you can have it off for the entire summer. And so just a different way to structure Biggest Loser to make it stick longer for people. Another one is with challenges. I think it's really important if we're trying to build habits that in the challenge there's something that they need to do daily. Now that's not going to work for everything. Like we have a financial challenge we just did that is the credit report challenge, to just challenge people to get their credit report. And that's a once and done. There's no way you can make that a habit, right? You can only order your credit report once a year. But with everything else, I would say 80% or 90% of our challenges, we try to do something daily. So one of the challenges is just the clean desk challenge. And so every day, you come in, you tidy up your desk. You might do it in the morning, you might do it in the evening, and you check done. It's a good feeling, actually. It's something simple to do, and you're like, boy, check, done. It's kind of like they've done studies on making your bed in the morning. If you do that, you feel better about yourself, and you're going to have a great day. And so that's another principle, daily. Okay, so level the playing field. You want to make it fair for everybody. It seems like so many challenges, you do these walking challenges or running challenges, and it's the marathon runners that always win. And so we did a challenge once. We used to be in the Sears Tower, now the Willis Tower, and we decided to do a building-wide challenge. We called it the Arctic 500, something that would apply very much here in Boston. So it was in February, and the challenge was to go get outside and walk for 500 minutes. Okay, now notice we didn't have how far you had to go. It was how many minutes. So even if you had a cane or a walker, you could still go outside and walk for 500 minutes because we weren't measuring distance. It was about getting outside, and there's a healthy aspect about just getting outside, especially in the winter, and then a healthy aspect about walking, obviously. So that's another principle. In fact, you want to make especially sure that everybody can participate, that it works for everybody, not just the healthy, because, quite frankly, they probably don't even need the help. So, okay, here's another one. Allow for exceptions. So one of our challenges is the classic, don't eat sugar for 30 days. But what we do with that one is we allow for, actually there's different ways to do the exceptions. So you could have 5 just straight up exceptions where 5 times you could eat sugar. The way we did it though with the Beet Sweets, to just make it go with your lifestyle, was any time that you ate something with sugar in it, you had to do an extra half hour of cardio that day, right? So you feel like, if I need to eat sugar, if I'm at a birthday party, I can go ahead, indulge, have the cake. I just need to add an extra half hour walk into the day. Not too bad, right? That's what I thought. And then I got in a little bit of a rut. I got in a hole. It's hard to dig yourself out. But it was it's a great way to allow for exceptions because, come on, who's going to go through the rest of their life not eating sugar, right? And so you kind of need to learn to just have balance. And this is a great way to do that and make it achievable. I guess with a lot of challenges, you'll fail early on, and then you can't kind of get back on the wagon, and so you just give up. And so you need to design a challenge where people can get back on the wagon and keep going. So, okay. Another one is keeping it simple. This goes back to even the flossing of one tooth. I talked to some people, and they're like, again, go to a wellness conference and they're like, yeah, we figured out the greatest challenge ever. You have to drink 10 bottles of water a day. You have to walk for 45 minutes and eat 5 vegetables. And it's just like, it's too complicated. Nobody's going to be able to do that except for the super, super healthy. And so what you want to do is dumb it down to something just very, very simple and just work on that. The small victories, right? And then it's something you can embed into your life that you can continue on with. So homebrew is an example of that. We didn't come and say you can't have caffeine, which would cut out, soda and coffee and everything. We didn't say you couldn't have coffee. What we said was you could only have homebrew coffee. And so this is a dual purpose challenge. One is financial. So you're saving money because you're not shelling out the bucks to Starbucks or whatever. And the other thing is, even if you do drink the same amount of coffee, I don't know, probably a lot of you know this, but Starbucks coffee is almost twice the octane. That's why it's so great. So it has almost twice the caffeine. So by drinking coffee made at home, they're drinking something a little bit more mild. And it just makes it simple. So we didn't say you can't drink coffee. You can drink all you want. You just need to brew it yourself, right? And so keep it simple, keep it achievable. Okay, one more here. Make it a challenge. Go figure, right? If it is a challenge going to be a challenge. I learned this lesson with the Eat Clean Challenge. This one actually is a complicated challenge. We were having some great successes. My co-author, Michael Garcia, and I were having some great success with building habits into our life, and we got a little gutsy. We're like, okay, let's figure out the perfect challenge for us. And the idea was just going to be me and him because we're like extreme people. And so we were trying to figure out the ideal diet, but kind of simply. So the challenge was no sugar, no fried foods, and let's see, no refined grains, only whole grains. So think about it. If you had a diet with no sugar, no fried foods, and only whole grains, it gets you in the right zone, right? It's a really good diet if you could do that all the time. So I said, okay, yeah, we're going to do this. And we were about ready to start. And you know what Michael did? Unbeknownst to me, he goes around the company and he starts inviting people. He's a former health coach. Starts inviting people to participate in this crazy hard challenge. And I was completely shocked. People took him up on it. They're like, wow, that's, they saw it as a challenge and signed up for it. So pretty much, I wouldn't say everybody, but like 80% of the office signed up for it. There's one lady, she's our test lead, Tick. Oh, she loves sugar. She loves soda. She loves, anyway, all things bad. Tick loves. She types with one hand. And I said, wow, it's really freaky to see her type with one hand. And I'm like, and she says, yeah, the other hand is for snacking. So she loves to snack too. So she did it. I was shocked that she did it. Week 3, she was a mental disaster. She came in, she was about ready to cry. And Michael, being a health coach, he coached her through it, and she actually made 4 weeks. And at the end of it, you talk to her, did she change her life? Is she going to keep that diet forever? No. But she found out there were some things she could live without. And I saw, in particular, she used to be a regular soda drinker, and she's gone to more like once a week or whatever. And she'll go with the San Pellegrino, that once a week is a special treat for her instead of just pounding down the Pepsi every day. So it works. Stuff like this works. It's really cool. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to roll this into maybe the broader wellness program concepts, and then we'll get to me and my personal journey. First one here is when you're putting together a broader wellness program, and our head of account management now, when she goes out and she recommends programs to our clients, instead of just doing one challenge, typically what we'll do is we'll have some personal challenges where people can pick whatever they want to do, right? And that's how we do our own internal one too. And then we'll have some group ones because the power of the group is really powerful, right? If you're doing something with everybody else. And so, but what she's doing, instead of just having one group challenge, she'll have kind of a smattering of themed challenges. So you don't need to just do one challenge in particular. You can kind of pick. And choice is like so important. Okay, so last week we had our user conference for our product. So we brought, let's see, we're launching instead of health coaching, we're launching life coaching. It's more holistic. It addresses all the areas of wellness. So we had our coaching company come in, and she talked about coaching, and I was so happy when she talked about it, because, you know, the default path when we're trying to build a wellness program is, and so many customers ask this, they take the health risk assessment. Does it tell them exactly what they must do to fix their health? And it's the same thing with health coaches, right? And that was one of the questions in the user conference. They asked her, they said, hey, can you tell people exactly what they need to do to fix their health? And you expect the coach is the expert, right? They should have the answer. And what she came back with is we try not to tell people, because the answer is within the people. And so actually after that, I got up, and I'm going to get on a little soapbox here. We're going to vary a little bit. That's so true, because people, if somebody tells you, you need to stop drinking soda, it's almost like, yeah, whatever. It makes me want to drink soda even more, right? And so the decision on what you're going to do and how you're going to need to do it needs to come from within. And a lot of times, that's the cool thing about having, I'm going to get to holistic here in a minute. That's the cool thing about having a holistic wellness program that addresses emotional, social, occupational, financial stuff, is you can come in and those challenges like I played, the Be Grateful, you can do that challenge, and guess what? I've had a victory, and I didn't have to diet like I already tried 30 times in my life. I've had a victory, you feel good about yourself, and you can move on to do more stuff. But the other thing, actually, so I will go on this tangent. So this other thing about choosing from within, that's why, with mindfulness, when I was first introduced to that and this whole meditation thing, I mean, my attitude towards that was like, look, that's not my religion, I don't meditate. But then I got into it a little bit, right? And that was one of our challenges, where I got to try a little bit of meditation. And I'm not an expert by any means. Like, I probably shouldn't even say anything about meditations. But one of the cool things for me was the whole aspect of clearing our mind, right? Because we have thoughts. Actually, the thing going on with us is, I think most philosophies would agree that we are made up of a spirit and then our body. And so what happens a lot of times is these thoughts come along, and the thoughts really aren't part of our spirit or our body, but our body will catch hold of the thoughts, and it'll start to fester on a thought. You've probably done it, right? Like somebody does something you don't like, and all of a sudden you start to justify how bad of a person they are, right? Or somebody cuts you off in traffic, and you're like mad, and you're festering on that thought, and you can't, they shouldn't have cut me off, so that's the bad thing going on is when we start festering on these thoughts, our body, it creates a bunch of static, and we can't listen to our spirit. And our spirit's what's going to tell us what we need to do next to improve ourselves. And so that, at least for me, that's one of the most important parts of mindfulness, is to clear the static so we can listen to our inner self, our gut. Some people call it our gut, so we know where we need to work on next. Okay, sorry, I went really philosophical there for a minute, huh? Okay, we talked a lot about habits. I talked a lot about holistic. I think that's super important. In fact, that's something you guys should look for probably in the systems go forward in October. In our October release of our product, for example, we're adding all the 6 dimensions of wellness to our health risk assessment, so people will be scored on that. And then all the challenges help support all 6 areas, not just the fitness and nutrition. It's so important. And then the middle area, I talked about purpose. The middle holistic area for us is purpose. Because just like the example with my friend, if you've got your purpose in alignment, all the other things just kind of fall into place. Okay, cool. And then the last thing about a general wellness program is cater to the unhealthy, right? Make sure the program works for the people who need it the most, okay? And let's see, I think we're going to look at nothing for a minute, if that's okay, and then I'm going to bring up my notes and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, because I'm hoping it's going to be super inspirational for you guys. Okay, so remember I came in, I was not a wellness person. First thing I did was all these challenges. I learned it was important to eat vegetables and exercise and all this stuff. Did periodic fasting for a while. Anyway, net result was I lost 25 pounds. So that's great, right? But in the process, I kind of found that who's in the driver's seat? Like I was in the driver's seat. I could make changes to me and make myself a different person. And so again, back to my spirit directing me. One day I was sitting in a management team meeting, and it was interesting. I had a big like, aha, this is for me, this is nothing, you guys, I'm going to bring up a few things that were like things that I needed to work on. So don't be offended if these aren't habits that you do or are even interested in doing. So I'm sitting in a management team meeting. There's two guys in the room that were actually people that go to my church, right? And then also in the room, there were two mothers of children ages 2 through 5, right? And I just noticed through the course of the different management team meetings that these mothers used very clean language, and us churchgoers, anyway, we had a few more exceptions, right? And a little bit of swearing. For me, it was probably substitute swear words, like darn it or something like that. But I had this aha, and why does a mother of a 2 to 3-year-old or 2 to 5-year-old use clean language, right? Because you don't want your kids saying darn it at a bad time, right? And so anyway, it really hit me, touched my spirit, and I said, you know what? I need to stop swearing, even substitutes. So that took me like 2 months, actually, because habits, sometimes they're hard, sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're hard. But I made that, made it a goal, and it happened. Another thing is, while that was going on, one day I'm driving to work. Again, I kind of heard my spirit talk to me, said, you know what? Turn off the radio. It's a 5-minute drive to the train station. Just turn off the radio, get the static out of your life. And again, this is along the lines of mindfulness, so you can hear me talk to you. Okay, so that was easy enough. And then at some point, remember I talked about sarcasm earlier? Oh boy, I'm an expert at sarcasm. I've been working at it my whole life. But again, at some point, I can't remember the exact situation, it really hit me. And I was like, you know what? I need to stop with the sarcasm. Because every time you do sarcasm, sure, it's funny, but there's always a little bit of truth to it. And that's the bite. And so that one was like this year-long, 18-month process. But as I figured out, oh, sarcasm's bad, then I realized, you know what? Most of the time, I love to tease too, especially my wife. She's very teasable. But then I realized, teasing's not so nice either. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is I had this journey on, I would tackle a habit and then listen to my spirit, and my spirit would say, okay, here's where you go next. Okay, about, after 12, 18 months of that, I ran into this, a friend of mine, good friend of mine that I worked for before coming to WellRight in Brooklyn. He introduced me to this David Hawkins study group. David Hawkins is a psychologist. He wrote a bunch of books. His last book was called Letting Go. So you can imagine what that talks about. Just like if somebody cuts you off in traffic, let it go. If somebody says something that you don't necessarily agree with, you can just let it go. Life's a lot easier. Again, it actually goes in alignment with all this mindfulness stuff. If we grab a hold of that and fester, it takes us a bad place. So that was helping me a lot. And let's see. So it really played into the next thing. So one day, one of my kids, and I didn't even realize it, one of my kids came up to me and said, or maybe it was a side comment that said, you and Mom always fight. And we're like, well, we don't fight. Well, that's kind of how everything was. She'd say something, and then I'd disagree with it, and then she'd disagree with it. It was just, I don't know, it was a way of life. We would just disagree with each other. We weren't fighting. But when I heard it, I was prepared, and my spirit said, look, no more of that. I don't want my kids going around remembering me for the rest of my life as you fight with your wife. So again, back to this letting it go. So if my wife says something that I don't necessarily agree with, really most of the time, and this is how a lot of people go through life, right? It's kind of a game. Somebody says something, and you're like, well, that's not necessarily true. Like my wife, she's an artist. With her, I could say the sky is blue, and she would say, well, no, it isn't. Like, really? Does it matter? So with this letting go thing, really helped me a lot. It's super, like, you got to work on it a lot. I'm still working on it, but it's so cool because then, again, it's mindfulness. It opens up to your mind so you can understand what you really need to be worrying about. So then, about this time, we got this idea, well, instead of traditional health coaching, we'll do this holistic life coaching. And as part of that, we ask all of our employees to create a personal mission statement. And so I created, as part of this process, I created a personal mission statement, which is crazy. I knew I should have created it 30 years ago. Stephen Covey, like he used to teach at our business school, so he came and talked to us. I read his books 30 years ago, but I never created the personal mission statement. And it was such a cool thing, because now when I went and I talked to my life coach, that kind of grounded me as far as where I needed to go with my challenges. In fact, one of the first challenges after I created my personal mission statement, let me share it with you really quickly, okay? I'm a little religious, so just look beyond that. Just take it directionally, okay? So my mission is become the type of person, and there's 3 key words here, that enjoys working with Jesus Christ, and there's going to be a second part, but enjoys. So I wake up working, because I think once we get to heaven, it's not going to be choir practice, that it'll actually be work, just like here. So I enjoy getting up and doing those types of things in my life. And how am I going to become like that? I'm going to become like that by helping other people reach their full potential. That was the original one. And then recently I've been reading a book, Give and Take, and I added in by helping myself and others reach their full potential. Because if we don't invest in ourselves, our capacity is lower and we can't help other people as much. Okay? And so the first thing I thought with this one is, you know what? I'm going to this challenge we saw up here, this Smile Big challenge. I'm going to try that one, because when we did it, confession here, when we did it as a company together and they made the video, I was grumpy that month. And I said, you know what? I'm not getting 60 people to smile. But I knew I wanted to come back to it. So I came back to it, and what a wonderful way to start to, if I'm going to help other people, the first thing would be to warm up to them a little bit. And so that has been so powerful for me to crack the smile. I know when you live in a big city like Boston or Chicago, people don't crack a smile so much. So sometimes it's hard. Normally you can just smile at them and they'll smile back, but sometimes not. We moved into our new office recently, and there's this wonderful lady that sits at the desk, but try to get a smile out of her heart, and it's a little bit rough because she sees 500 people a day. So one day I saw her outside. She was spraying down the sidewalks, and I just took a minute to talk to her and tell her how much I appreciated her and felt fortunate that she came with the building and was so helpful and everything. And guess what? Now every day when I go in, I get the biggest smile from her, and I've changed my life. I've changed her life. We've made life more enjoyable just by that simple act, right? And so let's see. Okay, so let me wrap it up here. So one really cool thing with David Hawkins is he talks about this progression, progressing through your emotions or whatever to certain levels. But at the top of it, the term he used, I think, was guru. He had different terms. But what he meant by guru is a guru is the type of person that people want to be around. Do you know anybody like that? People that you just want to be around. Why? Because they make you feel better. So that's kind of our goal, is to be a guru. He used an example. I remember back in the 70s, this thing came out, Kirlian photography or whatever. They take a picture of something and you can see the aura around it. And he said there's some people that can see the aura around things unaided, so they don't need the camera. And so his example was when he would go and he would be around these gurus that could see auras, he could also see auras. But if he left from around those people, he couldn't see the auras anymore. So I'm just trying to drive home this fact that by being a guru, we can actually help bring other people up with us, right? And I think that's the thought that I want to leave with all of you here, right? We need to all be gurus, and we need to help bring the rest of the world up. And maybe they're not going to be in the physical proximity, but as you guys design wellness programs, that's kind of an extension of you that's going out to all the people, and we have such a great opportunity to bring people up. I mean, certainly, the typical wellness program is focused on let's make people healthy, but think about it. Think about this be grateful thing, the smile thing. What if we have a challenge also called Be Positive, where there's no complaining? I told somebody about that at a conference, and she said, boy, yeah, if we did that at our company, it would be very quiet. So think about some of these challenges, and in some ways they're easier, right? Because you don't have to not eat to do the challenge. Think about rolling out some of these things at your companies, and think about making your people better people. Well, better people, what do better people make? Better companies. All of a sudden, saving money on claims becomes irrelevant because you're making 10 or 100 times more because your customer service rep is genuinely happy and loves to work at your company. And there's no infighting and politics. You're helping work that out of your organization. And if somebody came in and said, well, let's do training on how everybody can play nice, they wouldn't like that. It's Big Brother. But we're coming in, we're wellness, and we're coming in and we're saying, let's play some games and have some fun. And I just think wellness is the perfect platform to bring goodness into the workplace. And so that's the challenge I'd love to leave with all of you, is that you become a guru within your organizations to lift other people up and make the world a better place. So thank you very much.